All right, we're live. How you doing, guys?
Doing well.
Yeah, doing great.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so this talk is going to be 100% crop deaths. Um, yeah. Who wants to start it off? Michael, do you want to ask Garland something, or Garland, do you want to start it off?
I'm easy. I'm
Um,
easy. We all got lots to say, I'm sure, so we'll get
yeah,
to it all.
let's let Michael go.
Well, okay. I didn't have anything prepared, so I was kind of just planning on going with the flow of the conversation. But I guess basically we're talking about crop deaths, by which we mean uh, thing casualties of crop protection. That's kind of what we're talking about, right? Like when a farmer is growing plants, crops, and they do something that, or they, one of the methods that they take to ensure that their crops, their yield is optimized, they use um, like insecticides, rodenticides, fungicides, all this kind of stuff. And there's like hunting and things like this as well. It's all the stuff that farmers do to maximize the yield of their harvest that involve the killing of animals. That's like what we're talking about, correct?
Hold on.
Yes.
What we're talking about is any animal suffering and death that is associated with the cultivation of crops. It doesn't have to be crop protection. That is one
Okay.
category of crop deaths, but there are other categories of crop deaths outside of just crop
Okay, sure.
protection, lethal crop protection measures.
Okay. And you want to talk about all of the above?
Correct.
Okay, fair enough. So sure. My general position is, as you've heard before, Garland, that I
Negative
want
rights violations.
right.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Right.
so negative rights violations against sentient beings, of which animals, most animals, at least the ones that we're talking about, certainly are.
Right.
I certainly value like mammals, like rodents, way more than insects. So uh, if you want to, like, we can talk about insecticides and things like that, because I know the numbers go into the trillions, and it's really bad from that perspective. But I just personally I don't care that much. So if I'm certainly happy to talk about it, but if you want to talk about stuff I care about more, the rodenticide thing is something that I've really been trying to learn more about lately. So yeah, my general position is that um, animal ag is bad because it's very obvious, very brutal negative rights violations against the animals that are kind of victims of that system. Crop deaths, crop protection, animals killed in the harvest and whatever, some of that is accidental. And so I would say that there's sort of a very loose association with,
It's not quite accidental.
well, some of it is.
No, right now we know that it's happening, and if you know that something happened, like if you every time you drive to the store, you run over 25 dogs. The first time it can be considered an accident, but
Yeah.
after the thousandth time that you run over 25 dogs on your way to the store, at that point, you know that it's no longer an accident. You could say that it's
I
incidental, but
disagree.
you know before ahead of time that you're going to kill 25 dogs before you get back home.
Yeah, I think this is just a semantics thing because, yeah, I would say even if you killed a million every time you go, if you are not doing that each individual death intentionally, it's an accident. But I think that accident might be completely worth changing everything you do for.
Right.
So I don't think we need to debate the word accident, but it it's an accident in the definition of the word accident, I think.
Yeah, and the so that would like factor into like maximizing utility or minimizing disutility, probably more important, which I also value just at a sort of a lower level than I value negative rights violations. So the animals that are sort of incidentally killed by the combine harvester is kind of the classic one a lot of people talk about. It's like that matters to me, but way less because it's not accidental than like rodenticide, the intentional poisoning of an animal, for instance.
Right. And so what I see, and I think that non-vegans and what percent of vegans will drop out in the first 2 years? Is it 84%?
What do you mean when you say vegan? Like somebody that subscribes to the philosophy.
Yeah, let's say
I
someone.
couldn't even imagine, but the diet
Okay.
similar to if somebody does keto.
What is it? 100%?
it's 80
100% of vegans stick with it for life, or is it
something
less
like
than
that.
that? Oh, really?
The numbers depend on how long they've been vegan. If somebody's
Do you have
vegan,
a source for that? Do you have a source for that?
I don't have 100%
of vegans.
No.
I
think he
was
joking.
joking. I was joking. But no, I think there's something like it matters how long you were vegan. If you were vegan for 2 years, there's like 98% chance you'll stay vegan. But anyways, the diet thing you're referring to, somebody being vegan in the same way that they tried Mediterranean and it didn't work out, and they tried keto and then they go to plant-based. It's 84%, I believe.
Right. I think you're right. It's 84% of people who try veganism will drop out before the end of a 2-year period. I'm pretty sure that's what you're talking about.
But just so you know,
that number.
Me and Michael are not people that tried veganism. Me and Michael are people that subscribe.
Michael and I.
Actually, in that case where the R comes after the I, it wouldn't be. It's the other way around. It's complicated. It depends on if you can say the sentence with the I by itself. Anyways, we won't get into that. But yeah, me and Michael, I believe, I don't necessarily want to speak for Michael, but we aren't people that are trying the diet to see if the diet works. We are people that subscribe to the philosophy. I don't know if this really matters, if that's part of your point, if what you mean when you talk about vegans or veganism.
Okay, where I'm going with this is that what vegans make up globally about 1% of the population. And then you've got the vegan activists, which represent some portion of that percentage that's outside that 84% that drop out within the first 2 years. So, and we've got a lot of long-term vegans that have come out later. Some of them after 3 years they drop out. 4 years, each person's a little bit genetically different, and so there's different genetic propensities to run into nutritional deficiencies that we know are caused by the vegan diet. So it might be 14 years for some people. In fact, I know that you actually interviewed an ex-vegan who dropped out after 14 years. I couldn't find that video on your channel. Maybe you took it down.
I'm happy to go down this nutrition road, but is this leading back to crop death somehow? Because I want to address
it is. Are you going to let me speak, Michael, without interrupting me? No. Thank you. Thank you. No. Thank you. No. Let me speak. Let me speak, Michael. Thank you.
I'm going to say one thing first, and then I'll let you continue.
Yeah.
So if you're going to make claims that the vegan diet is bad, that's something I want to address. And if you want this discussion,
you and I, Michael, will have a nutrition debate later.
All right. So then, in the meantime, can we not make claims that we're not?
No, I have free speech, and I know that you don't like that, Michael. I know that you don't want me to be able to speak, but I want to be able to address. You're going to have to deal with me speaking, Michael.
Hold on,
but I want to be able to address the argument.
Michael, you're going to have to deal with me speaking.
Okay, I'm happy to let you speak as long as I get to
Michael, you're going to have to let me speak. I'm going to have a say here.
Can I pause you both and ask
one
question?
Or we can shut this whole conversation down.
Let's not shut it down. Let me just ask one question, because I am concerned as well, but sometimes things do circle back. Due to the time we each have 2 hours, is this going to go back to crop deaths?
I have said multiple times that, yes, this is going back to crop deaths.
Let's do it. Okay, go on.
Okay. So the percentage of the human race, including non-vegans, ex-vegans, and approximately 84% of current vegans, do not subscribe to your mental gymnastics, Michael, where you try to justify and rationalize crop deaths based on semantics of, well, yeah, we kill more animals, but it's not intentional. Therefore, it's okay that we do it.
What do you think my position is?
Carson, did you understand what I just said?
Yes, in a sense. I don't know if we should connect it to what other people might think of what Michael thinks. We could just each go over what we think and why we think something is right or wrong. Because somebody essentially might just not care about the deaths of any non-human animals, and somebody might care, and accidents might affect it. So we can just figure out why each individual thinks what they think.
Right. So here's an example of the mental gymnastics that you guys continue to engage in. Is that, for instance, on the one hand, honey is not vegan. We can all agree on that. However, when it comes to crop deaths, we don't care that much about insects. You have to pick one position or the other. What you're doing is you're straddling the barbed wire fence, okay? And as a result, it makes you look dishonest because you either care about insects or you don't. If you don't care about insects, then it doesn't matter whether or not you're harvesting honey from them or spraying them with poisons to kill them. Okay. You can't say that it's wrong to harvest honey from honeybees, but at the same time say it's okay if we drive all the pollinators towards extinction, including the honeybees. Why do you think that these honeybee keepers, these guys that actually have honeybee colonies, that they have to drive all over the country because crop farmers are hiring them to bring their honeybees in and pollinate the crops? Why do you think that's necessary? It's necessary because crop agriculture has killed off the majority of the pollinators. And so this idea that you can demonize the consumption of honey based on exploitation and at the same time support a crop agriculture that is driving all pollinator insects into extinction, that is called intellectual dishonesty. Okay? Mm-hmm. So either you have to pick one. Either you value insects or you don't. This business of you guys constantly saying we care about insects when it comes to honey, when it comes to the insecticides that produce the crops that are on the vegan menu, we don't care about those insects because those insects also include honeybees. So this is something that you guys need to stop doing, and it's one of the reasons why veganism is flatlining. You can't get more and more. It's like network marketing, where you've got these people at the top that benefit, and then there's this constant burn off of fuel, aka ex-vegans in this case.
Okay, well, let's not get into that. But let's just talk about what's right and wrong and how we feel about this. But I just want to point out there's different degree. Well, first of all, I want to point out that me and Michael, as you might have noticed, seem to be, as far as any vegans I've seen online, some of the only people willing to get into this crop death idea and talk about this and figure out in detail what we think is right or wrong. I've been talking recently a lot with people that have been agreeing and actually like cutting back their calories. That they told me, some guy on a stream that I don't even know from Belgium, I think, or Bulgaria, yesterday was telling me that because of hearing us talk about crop deaths, he actually downloaded Chronometer to track his calories just for moral reasons, not even for wanting to diet. And so, yes, there is some idea that over consuming stuff that causes crop deaths is a reason to look into that. And we're here to possibly hear your ideas, and if you are right and can share reasons with us, maybe even agree with you. So we're with you. We just need to break it down. I think we should take it one step at a time. And if you want to start with if you want to go the insect route and start with bees,
you didn't address what I said.
I know. I'm just wanting to point out something to you.
Yes, but I want you to address what I said.
True. Well, I'm going to stop talking and let Michael hop in. But if you want to pinpoint and talk about bees, I'm sure we're totally willing to do that. Even though I agree with Michael, I care less about insects, as we know by your.
Okay,
awesome
like I said, you're going to have to. You guys have to pick a position.
Yep.
On insects, either they matter or they don't. Because when it comes to honey, which adds to our It contributes to
Okay,
global
JD, I'm going
food
to answer
security.
you. I'm going to answer you. I'm going to explain why it's not as simple as just picking.
This is why people think.
Hold on.
This is why veganism is becoming
Well,
more and more perceived as a misanthropic
There's no
cult.
this if you don't hear what this is. So just let me respond to you. I would not squish an ant that I just
No.
You gotta
don't
let
even
him
know
talk,
what I'm
Garland.
saying.
You're either
Just let me finish what
Give
I'm
him a
saying.
second.
Squishing ants is
Garland,
different
just
than
look.
spraying
I'm not
pesticides
calling
that
it-
You went
kill
through
ants.
nutrition
I'm
to get to your
using
crop
an
death thing. Just let him
example.
talk for a second.
Okay. I would not squish an ant intentionally, but if I was walking and I found out somebody told me I stepped on an ant accidentally, I would not care about that too much. So what I'm pointing out is it's not as simple as you care or you don't care. There are levels to things, but we are here to figure out with you more of where our level is. I'm hoping and thinking at the end of this conversation, at least I will have an even further extent of how I view my valuing of insects and rodents and birds and so on. So anyways, Michael, do you want to respond to what JD just said?
Yeah, unless you want to say something first, Garland, to address what Carson said.
I'll just repeat the fact that he did not address what I said.
That's fine.
Okay,
It's a distraction.
Well,
I wanted to share something, and then I wanted to see if Michael wanted to respond to what you said. But anyways, it's all right. I'm not offended.
Yeah, I mean, I don't personally think it's a distraction. I think it's an important point that you can value something, but then you can have differential values about like it can be more wrong to like pluck the legs off of a bee for no reason. It can be more wrong to do that than to accidentally kill a bee. So like there's levels to, just because it's wrong we value a bee doesn't mean there's nothing we wouldn't ever do to a bee. So we value ourselves more than a bee. So it's like if we need a bee, for example, to be healthy and to live an optimal life, i.e. grow crops and not, if we didn't use insecticides, for example, we'd need to use more cropland to grow the same amount of food. So there'd be more like wildlife deforestation and things like that. So there's like an other side to the equation, right? And I don't know the empirics of how that works out. Like, I think do you disagree? Like, do farmers use it to get a better yield? If we got a worse yield, we'd have to have more cropland available to grow food on, and that would imply more deforestation to produce the same amount of food. Is that not coherent?
It makes perfect sense, and I think that you're not realizing it, but you're admitting that crop agriculture is destructive.
Well, yeah, of course. Like, yeah, we take land to grow the food that we need as humans to be healthy.
Right.
Yeah, of course it's destructive.
Yeah.
And like some of that is for animal agriculture. So animal agriculture's impact on that is destructive as well.
Yeah,
like,
5% of the crops are hay and alfalfa, and 36% of the corn is grown specifically for animals. But 64% of the corn is grown to be processed, and it's processed into ethanol, high fructose corn syrup. After the processing, you've got things like spent grains, distiller's corn, waste products that are inedible and indigestible by human beings. Yeah, unfortunately, those crop industries have learned to make a profit by selling those to livestock. My position is that the livestock industry should drop the crop industry and stop giving you guys business and stop supporting the crop industry. However, the crop industry has learned to make a profit from waste because it's largely indigestible.
Right.
Right. Well, yes, it is. If it doesn't go to livestock, it's waste.
Well, so it's made into oil and like meal, essentially, depending on what thing we're talking about for animal feed, right?
Yeah, per ounce, the oil is much more profitable per ounce than the meal. Now, think of this.
I did the calculations on this, Garland. It's actually pretty close.
As far as the profits, yes. Right now, the profits are very close. In fact, The oil is just a little bit more profitable right now.
Okay.
And tomorrow that might change because it's so close. But per ounce, Michael, which one is more profitable per ounce?
Well, you're talking about corn right now. So I have the math on soybeans.
Okay, look,
I don't have it on corn.
Do you know
You
how
want to go
much?
through it?
Do you know? No, because I understand, and I will admit to you that the overall profit is around a 50-50 margin. Okay. However, if you look at gold mining, for example, you might have to go through, say, 100 tons of earth to produce 1 ounce of gold. However, that earth can be sold as roadwork material. So you can actually take that earth that become a big mountain of earth that's left over after the gold is extracted and make a profit from that by selling it to highway departments around the country so that they can use it to maintain and build roads and highways. So in other words, if you've got 99% of the earth that's being dug up is earth and only 1% is gold, and you end up with a 50-50 margin, that doesn't mean that the earth is being dug up to produce material for roads. It's being dug up because per ounce, the gold is much, 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 much more valuable than an ounce of earth.
But in the case we're talking about of crops that are a combination use of being used for fuel, human consumption, and animal consumption, essentially, there's demand being driven from both sides of that, the animal and the human, and the ethanol side as well.
Michael.
So, well, let me finish. Yeah. So, given that's the case, the alternative, like if, let's just suppose that all of a sudden, like we do what you say, and farmers stop buying, soybean cakes or cornmeal or whatever for livestock. What happens to those industries? Do you think that we grow the same amount of soybeans because we need soybeans and soybean oil? No, we grow more efficient crops that like canola, like palm, that have a better yield per acre of oil.
No, and here's why. Okay. And I've shown you this before. There are trillions and hundreds of trillions of grams of high quality animal protein that you would be omitting if you misanthropically removed all livestock from the earth. Okay.
Wait, that's not what I said, though.
No. Right. If you get rid of the livestock industry, then you've got to no. Listen, Michael. Okay. Let me speak. If you get rid of livestock, you've got to replace that protein and all those nutrients.
This isn't
so this idea that we don't need soybeans for their oil, that we can move to something more sustainable or more efficient like palm oil, that what you're doing is you're being intellectually dishonest by saying that the oil is the only thing of value there, because the protein is also of value. You're going to have to replace all that animal protein, which means that you're going to have to, if you were to extract every gram of protein from all the soy grown in the world right now, it would be less than 1/4 the protein grams that are being supplied by all of the meat, dairy, fish, and eggs.
Sorry, what's that claim? Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. I didn't get the math. You said 1/4 something.
If you remove all of the animal protein from the earth right now, then the soybean protein that's being produced, if you were to extract every gram of protein from every soybean in the world right now, then that would equal the amount of protein that would amount to less than 1/4 of the protein that's being supplied to the populations around the world currently by meat, fish, dairy, and eggs.
But soybeans aren't fed to fish. Like what? Why is that a relevant fact at all?
Soybean meal is fed to fish, but I'm talking about to farmed fish. Yes, they do feed soybeans. But what I'm saying is that for the human race, if you get rid of livestock, then you're going to be removing all of that. Let's see.
Like all those things eat other things though too. So it's not a fair comparison to just say if you remove all of the protein from meat, it's 4 times more than like all the soybeans. Like it's kind of an irrelevant. Like you'd have to sum up all of the feed, right?
No, we're not talking about the feed. We're talking about the protein right now that people are acquiring via meat, fish, dairy, and eggs.
Okay. I don't understand the relevance of this, of what you're saying. Like what's...
Well, as a vegan, you don't understand the relevance of high quality protein. But what I'm saying is that the majority of the world does value high quality protein. And so if you're going to misanthropically and maliciously remove livestock from the picture, then all of that protein has to be replaced, Michael.
Okay.
And then some, because plant proteins have been shown to be low quality and difficult to digest.
Garland, what you said, okay, I just want to get back to the point, because what you said was you are in favor of not feeding crops to livestock, right? So I was just saying, okay, so let's just say we go with that. We don't feed crops to livestock or whatever. I was just saying, what happens to those industries, like the soybean industry? And I'm saying we wouldn't produce the same number of soybeans. Therefore, the demand for soy meal is impacting the amount of soybeans that are grown. That was my point. I wasn't saying anything about like, let's stop animal ag. That wasn't my point at all. Does that make sense?
I can show you where the soybean industry is trying to breed or genetically modify the soybeans so that they will produce more oil.
Okay.
There is no one trying to develop a soybean that produces more meal.
Okay.
So the driver is the oil. That's what's driving the soybean. In fact, I can show you news articles that are telling everyone that's what's driving the growth of the soybean industry right now is veganism.
Okay, well, hold on, because we're not all the same. Not all vegans agree on the same things. Most people tell me I'm not a vegan. Michael, do you want all this soybean oil?
From what I've seen, the nutritional value of like different seed oils is fairly like across the board pretty similar. So like whether it's canola or soy or vegetable or safflower or whatever, they're fairly.
Question regarding similar. What you just said, which fat soluble vitamins are there in these oils that you're championing?
Which fat soluble vitamins? I'm not sure offhand. Why?
Okay, well, we get our fat soluble vitamins from fats. So, which fat soluble vitamins are being now? And before I continue, I want to call attention to this fact is that we're 30 minutes into this talk, and we have yet to talk about crop deaths. And this is
why is that, Garland?
And this is exactly why I wanted to talk to Reasonable Vegan on a one-on-one, yet he insists that Michael come in here and hold his hand because Michael has pledged to debunk the relevance of crop deaths.
No.
So I want everyone to realize that the vegans, they don't care about the animals that suffer and die because of crops. What they want to do is they want to try to justify it. And that's what watch Michael. That is what he's here for today.
I think we should try to take each other at like with good faith, because
Carson, why won't you speak to me one-on-one regarding this issue? Why do you insist on bringing your little
I enjoy talking to Michael, and he's one of the only people I know that's actually interested in learning about crop deaths.
No, he's not. He's interested in trying to dismiss it as an issue.
No,
I've said
Michael has he has emailed various professionals within farming to get people to talk to understand the details of how it works. We are both truly curious.
Well, then why aren't we talking about that? What we're doing Michael is trying to justify crop deaths based on negative rights. This is mental gymnastics. It's negative rights violations. Animal suffering and death does not matter.
let me explain this to you. Let me
We
explain
have
this
to
you.
go
Let me
back to the
explain this to you
original
for a second.
question. Put all of this aside.
Not for a second.
Do insects matter or do
Oh my
they
God.
not?
That's not the original question, and I've already answered that, so I'm going to say something different. I'm going to say, look, we have differential stuff. Like, we need to eat, right? If we all agree that we prioritize our own lives ahead of other
No,
stuff, we
we
do
don't
what it
just
takes.
need to eat. We need
Hold
to
on, let him
eat
finish.
to
Just let him
gain
finish.
nutrients, Michael.
Yes.
Okay, let
Yes.
Michael
And
finish.
pills are not a good way to get nutrients. That's
Do you
been
want to talk
proven again and
nutrition, or do you want to
again.
talk crop deaths, Garland? Because I can
Do
talk
you know
either.
how synthetic methylcobalamin is
Oh my God.
created?
Wait, Garland, please just let Michael finish. He's trying to get into crop deaths, and we need to take it one at a time and not add the extra details in. Let's just take each thing one at a time. But Michael, please finish.
Okay, I've kind of lost train of thought. Right. So if we want to survive, okay, that's my value. I do value myself. Oh, you disagree already? Is that not something I'm allowed to do?
84% of vegans drop out within the first 2 years, Michael, because of health problems.
It has nothing to do with crop
Health
deaths, though.
problems.
That's not
Hold
even
on.
accurate. That's not even accurate.
Yes,
Wait, let me
it is.
pause. Are you guys
Yes, it
both
is.
okay with us talking about the idea that some humans might not even care about their health? That's fine to not care about one's health. Now,
It's actually not. It's not.
okay, but I don't want to make people legally have to care about their health.
Then you if you care about your health, then you should not be responsible for subsidizing the medical care that goes into treating those people who don't care about their health. And our incomes are being taxed to fund those people who don't care
and
about
we can
their
be against
health.
that, but that's not what the conversation is about. We're trying to figure out, because me and Michael are two people that care about sentient, non-human animals in a way where we want to figure out, are we affecting them in a negative way by eating crops? So that's why we're talking about crop deaths. So we don't need to talk about
we're not
other.
talking about crop deaths.
We're trying
We
to.
want to.
It's like,
Me and
here's
Michael
the
are
deal,
trying,
Garland.
but you keep hopping to other topics.
Here's the deal.
And
We're
need
not hopping to other topics. We were moving that direction, but Michael came in and said crop deaths don't matter because
I didn't say
these
that.
animals are dying, but they're not dying because of a
You asked a
negative
question
rights
about-
violation,
you asked a question
which is
about
mental
insects.
gymnastics
No.
and a misanthropic
Garland,
effort to
you
distract
asked a
from
question
the
about
death
insects.
and destruction caused by the crop agriculture
Do
that
you want to hear my position
produces
or not,
the
Garland?
vegan
If
menu.
not, I'm going to go.
Garland,
You
listen.
should go, Michael. You should
Wait.
go.
Hold on,
Yeah.
Michael, don't go. Michael, come back. Okay, JD. The problem is
You either want to learn about crop deaths or you don't. If you don't, then if you do, then stop bringing Michael on here to distract. Deal with me one-on-one like a man and stop bringing him in to hold your hand and face me.
yeah.
Don't bring someone, because look, tell me, is there a difference between you and Michael?
Is there a difference? Yeah, we're different people.
Okay, and you value animal suffering and death, and he doesn't.
I don't think that's true.
He only values animal suffering and death when it's as a result of a negative rights violation. Correct?
No, not correct. He values it differently based on the negative rights violation. But no, he's actually
Right. Well, most people don't play that game, Carson. Most people are not playing this BS game of, oh, well, yeah, all these animals are dying because of these pesticides, but that's not a negative rights violation because they're trespassing on our property. And they're the ones that are guilty of a rights violation because they're trespassing.
Yeah, and I think
Okay, is that your position, Carson?
it depends on the topic, but for the most part, no.
Okay,
I think
that's why you and I should be speaking,
Yeah,
and
fine.
Michael and I can speak in another forum.
Fair enough.
Where he can argue that those deaths and sufferings do not matter because
Fair
that's
enough.
what he's for.
No, yeah.
That is
there might
his
be
sole
a-
purpose.
Yeah, and there might be a misunderstanding that I wanted to bring him on because I thought he would win something or whatever. I enjoy talking to Michael, and I
No,
enjoy
if you
talking
wanted
to
to
you.
learn about crop deaths, then you and I would have a one-on-one conversation
Gotcha,
rather
okay.
than bringing in someone whose sole purpose is to try to dismiss or debunk crop deaths. That's his
Gotcha.
entire thing. He doesn't care about the animals. He cares about whether people are eating the animals or eating the honey. He doesn't care whenever, oh, well, you can't eat honey. That's not vegan. But it's okay to poison those bees and kill them so that we have crops to eat.
Well, anyways, we don't need to
Do
talk
you
about
see
Michael.
the hateful and misanthropic nature of that position?
I don't think he holds that position.
He does hold that position.
Okay. Well, anyways, I'll let you talk to him about that at a different time. So let's just do me and you. Let's do it.
Good.
Okay. Do you want to start or you want me to start?
Go ahead and start.
Okay. So I think it's complicated, similar to that thing I explained with the ant. There's two different situations. Same thing would go with something like rodents. So in somebody's house, I think it's perfectly acceptable for somebody to poison mice or rats that are under their house, chewing up their foundation, chewing up their electric stuff. Even though at some point in the future, I would like there to be innovations that make it to get rid of such things without the harm. I want as little harm as possible. So, so when it comes to something like getting food, I think that unless there was a way to get food without harming animals, if some need to be harmed, then I will still eat that food. But I think maybe it is wrong to consume something like vegan cakes or vegan cookies or vegan burgers or something where it's unhealthy. You're not getting healthy nutrients to your body and you're causing harm. So I don't think crop deaths should happen for unhealthy food. But unless I'm convinced otherwise, I will still eat rice and beans and apples and lettuce if it causes crop deaths.
Okay, so tell me what nutrients, what essential nutrients are provided by rice?
I am not an expert on nutrients.
Well, you just listed it as a food that would provide nutrients.
Yeah. So we have to go with what we can know without studies and looking at various different scientific takes on diets for species, including ourselves. I wouldn't know outside of trial and error without those studies. So I've looked into a handful of studies, and I have currently come to the conclusion that I think humans are probably best off on eating whole foods, especially if you're looking at somebody that is going to be, let's say somebody's going to be vegan no matter what or something. If you're going to eat no animal products, then I've been convinced that eating whole foods that just grow and you eat those whole foods are the healthiest thing you could eat, because I've been convinced that eating processed foods like processed sugars and other junk like that is not healthy. Now, can I explain the exact details of this? No. Could I be convinced otherwise? Of course. That's just where I'm currently at.
Okay, so is it appropriate for you to be listing rice as a crop that delivers essential human nutrition if you don't know that that's a fact?
Yes.
Okay, so which plants do you know are delivering essential nutrition?
No, I don't. That's what I'm saying. I don't need to know.
You don't need to know, but you're allowed to list a bunch of plants as essential for human nutrition. Don't you have to pick one or the other?
Well, in case you want numbers, I believe two people from your channel are one saying B6 and magnesium, and then another is saying fiber and magnesium. But anyways, I don't care about having that answer because no, I think.
Did you read the entire comment about that B6 and magnesium? What was that last part of that comment?
Oh, was it a negative thing? Okay, then down to Mark, it was fiber and magnesium, which is weird if one's saying there's not magnesium. I'm not sure, but anyways, I just wanted to read those because I saw those. But anyways, it doesn't matter. Because it
matters because vegans continue to paint plant nutrition as superior to animal nutrition. Yeah. And really, if you can't demonstrate that to be a fact, then that's not a fair thing for you to say.
Can you demonstrate that to be a fact? Your stance?
I can.
No.
I can't. Yes, I can. I can actually. The USDA has calculated, measured the nutrients in all kinds of foods. So if you would like, we can compare something like beef liver to rice, and we can see which one actually delivers more essential nutrition than the other. Would you like to do that?
I have no interest in doing that. I don't know why I would have any interest in
Well,
doing
the
that.
reason why you would have an interest is because you just asked me if I could prove that or not. The answer is yes, I can.
No,
You're not interested in seeing that proof.
No, you're claiming that you can show that one thing might have more something than another thing.
No. What I said was I can show you that beef liver has more human essential nutrients than rice. I didn't say whatever this and that, and I didn't use a bunch of generic words.
No, I'm saying
I used
one versus another.
No, I used specifics. I said beef liver and rice. Would you like to compare beef liver and rice when it comes to the essential nutrients required for human health?
No, for multiple reasons. But the main one would be the amount of things we would have to look into to figure out that what we should take from that it would be endless how long that would take to figure out. I mean, if your claim is just that you know for a fact that humans shouldn't consume much produce, and that's the end of it, then I don't know what to tell you.
I never said that. I never. You're quoting me on things that I never said, Carson.
Okay. Well, I have no intention of doing that, so I'm sorry if I did that.
Well, then let's get back to reality, and let's talk about the fact that what we're here to talk about is crop deaths.
Yes.
And these crop deaths either matter or they don't.
Yeah.
You need to take a position on insect deaths.
Correct.
And we need to do that before we move forward. They either matter or they don't. Now, no, I understand your bullshit excuse of, well, I can't be bothered with worrying about an ant that I unintentionally step on. Therefore, that I don't care about. No, we're talking, you're talking about what happens underneath your shoes when you're walking. But that's changing the subject, Carson. We're talking about crop deaths. So when it comes to acquiring food, insects matter or they don't. You can't sit on the fence about this anymore. You have to pick one. They either matter or they don't. Honey is either vegan or it's not. If it's vegan, then that means all insect lives and all insect exploitation matters. And when you start, you come into a wild area that is thriving with biodiversity, all types of species are going through their life cycles, and you bulldoze that, you destroy it, you plow it all up, you spray it down with toxic agrochemicals, and you drive pollinators towards extinction so much that the crop agriculture is now relying on those people who are producing honey. Those people that are producing your crops require pollinators. Are you denying that crop agriculture does not rely on professional beekeepers?
I'm not denying anything like.
Okay, would you admit it? Would you admit it?
Would I admit that they rely on beekeepers? I would admit that if you're claiming they do, and I'm guessing you're not lying. Sure, I don't have a full understanding of crop agriculture. But hold on, just before you keep going with that. So as we know, I have a stance on what I think veganism should mean, but we don't need to talk about that. We can talk about what veganism actually means just by definition. So by definition, by the Vegan Society definition, it involves the idea of what is practicable. And so is that an objective measurement? Practicable.
How do you measure? How do you measure practicable?
You don't, which is why I think it's stupid. Which is why I think the definition should be more of a philosophy that does not involve your actions. Because I agree, veganism is on a spectrum especially because of crop deaths. Like, you cannot be vegan and consume crops that insects die in. You can't be. Which is why the definition is dumb, and which is why the definition that involves practicable, what that definition would bring it down to is you can be vegan if only you are solely eating for your health, or your survival, I guess, not necessarily your health. And therefore, overeating calories, by that definition, must be not vegan. If it is practicable to not be overweight, then that would mean an overweight vegan is not vegan by the Vegan Society definition. So I'm with you. This is worth analyzing and breaking down. There is issue with crop deaths, but I don't know if I'm convinced that there are enough crop deaths to make me think that that is more immoral than the acts of animal agriculture. And part of that is due to I care less about insects than I do about other animals, depending on the outcome. I think we have to factor in things like the accidental side of when you poison the insects, that leads to the bird deaths. Now, it doesn't matter that it's accidental. It is an intentional action that leads to an accidental outcome that is a bad outcome. So we have to view this as bad. The question is, what are the numbers? How do I know if this apple is causing more harm to sentient beings than this steak? And that's kind of what I want to learn. And maybe I'll learn a little bit of it today.
First of all, are you equating an apple with a steak when it comes to nutritional sustenance?
Within that type of a hypothetical, I think you just have to you'd have to neutralize.
Right, but let's move from the hypothetical into the real world.
Real life.
Do you think that an apple is comparable to a steak when it comes to essential nutrients?
No, I would assume that an apple is far more healthy.
You would assume that an apple is far more healthy than a steak based on what?
Based on any studies I've ever looked at, and based
okay, so
on...
which essential nutrients are there in an apple that aren't there in a steak?
That aren't there in a steak? I don't know. What, like vitamin C? Well, I don't know exactly what you mean by essential nutrients.
Okay. Okay, is vitamin, first of all, someone that's on a carnivore diet, that's not eating any carbohydrates, do they require the same amount of vitamin C as someone who's on a high carbohydrate diet?
I don't know. I've actually never heard of this idea. So what do you think? Or what do you know?
Well, I know that carbohydrates and vitamin C utilize the same site receptors, which means that someone who's on a low carb or no carb carnivore diet requires very little vitamin C.
Gotcha.
Because the vitamin C that's required on a high carbohydrate diet is much, much, much higher than someone who's on a low carb or no carb animal foods based diet. So this idea, and the second issue is that beef liver has a lot of vitamin C. In fact, more vitamin C than an apple contains.
Yeah. I vaguely was familiar with organs. I don't know if all organs, but I think all organs might have vitamin C. And there's various nutrients that you usually only get from produce that you can maybe even get in animal brains. I've heard that some people consume like brain parts, but yeah, I don't know the exact details. And but I don't feel like I need to either.
Well, if you're going to make claims, then yes, you need to be able to back those claims up. Otherwise, just don't bother making the claims. Can we agree on that?
If you're going to make claims, don't do it unless you can back them up. It depends on what the claim is. If I'm claiming that I've read handfuls of studies and I've looked at various things, and some people say that you can be perfectly healthy on a carnivore diet, where others would say paleo, others would say keto, others would say plant-based. And there's various studies that show benefits of all these. And we can see that there's things these all have in common. Every single one of these would say something like, don't consume processed sugars, cakes, cookies, stuff like that. Don't consume seed oils. Likely most would say something like that. And so we can see what a lot of them have in common. But what we have now is what the studies do reveal. And many, many health professionals, people with doctorates, scientists will say that a plant-based diet is perfectly healthy. But also it seems like a lot are saying a carnivore diet is healthy. So me saying that I accept one of these routes doesn't mean that I have to somehow prove in a way to get you to accept that it's better than one of the other routes that's accepted as well. It just means I shouldn't tell people they can live off of cake.
You're telling people they can live off of apples. And so you're going.
I'm not saying people can live off of apples. You said out of apples and steak. What are my thoughts?
People can live off of steak, but they can't live off of apples.
Yeah, if I had to go the rest of my life eating just apples or just steaks, I'd want to know the facts. And if you're correct, then I would eat just steaks for the rest of my life. I care way more about myself than I do about animals.
Yes, but this goes back to your original claim, which was that you assume that apples are healthier than steak. And
yeah.
Again,
I guess if you're talking about an overall, if you're monomealing the rest of your life, that's not what I was referring to. I was just referring to which thing would be better to consume, one apple or one steak. I tried to get you to do is I tried to have you illustrate why you assume that apples are healthier than steak. And the only thing you could do is to appeal to authority. And I asked you in the comments of my channel, which authority are you trying to use this fallacy with? And you said the American Dietetics Association, did you not? I was thinking I'm pretty sure that's the one that said at all stages of life, a well-planned vegan diet is acceptable.
Okay. That was a position paper, was it not?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Okay, so I will tell you that was a position paper, which is an opinion paper. Mm-hmm. And secondly, is that paper currently in play? Was it renewed?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Okay. Do you know anything about position papers?
Nothing. I've never heard of a position paper until right
Okay,
now.
but you're referring to a position paper by the American Dietetic Association.
Because you asked me a question, so I did a quick Google search and I sent something to you.
Okay.
I wasn't like having that be the declaration of my debate to win $1 million.
Carson, if you're going to claim that veganism is appropriate for all stages of life, then you have to back that up. And I asked you to back it up, and you did it by
I'm not claiming that I know it is, which is why when people talk about legal stuff, I will say that it shouldn't become illegal to eat animals because we have nowhere near enough studies to make a decision like that. Because I would rather people be at optimal health than protect animals.
Okay,
and then
Carson.
the protecting comes after that.
Let's look at it this way, okay? Mm-hmm. You like hypotheticals.
I love it.
Rather than real world. Okay, so let's say hypothetically that I'm a vegan and I publish a position paper that states that a vegan diet is appropriate for human beings in all stages of life.
Okay.
And you, rather than taking the time to learn the details to figure out that on your own, if that's true or not, you're going to rely upon me so that you can invoke the fallacy of authority. That is a fallacy. Okay? Just because some authority says something is true doesn't mean that it is. However, you can at least refer to that entity. In this case, it would be me as a vegan saying that veganism is appropriate for all life stages of a human being. However, position papers have expiration dates. It's sort of like a certification that requires renewal. Mm-hmm. Okay, so there are certifications out there that you have to renew, and if you let them expire, then they're no longer valid. Okay? Mm-hmm. So that's the way position papers work. The American Dietetics Association did have that position paper that did make that claim. However, since then, two important things have happened. Okay? First of all, Susan Levin, which was one of four primary scientists there. This is a woman who wrote countless articles talking about how veganism protects against colon cancer. She died of colon cancer. After she died of colon cancer, the expiration date of that paper that you're referring to as current came and went. And the American Dietetic Association decided not to renew that paper. And they
decided not to, or it was not renewed.
They decided not to renew it, and as a result, it was not renewed.
Okay.
I emailed them and asked them why they didn't renew it. They wouldn't say why they didn't renew it. They would only say that they were working on the idea of renewing it again, but had to have time to cherry pick researchers in order to.
They announced that they wanted to cherry pick?
They told me that they were looking for researchers to pull together in order to come out with a position on vegan/vegetarian diets. Right now, they don't have a position. Now, if you're filtering through researchers trying to pick specific ones, that's called cherry picking.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm familiar. Mm-hmm.
So they didn't use the word cherry. I'm using that word to describe in reality what they're doing. Did they say that they were going to come out and renew that position? They did not tell me that.
Mm-hmm. I
have a community post that goes over this. I have screenshots from my email conversations with them. Mm-hmm. And they refuse right now to renew the paper that you're referencing, and they also refuse right now to reassert any position on the vegan diet or the vegetarian diet. And really, the vegan diet and the vegetarian diet are opposite from one another. One's got animal products in it, and the other one doesn't. So anytime a vegan tries to invoke studies or any facts about vegetarianism to support their diet, that's intellectual dishonesty, and it's fraud. Mm-hmm. Because you're either including animal products in your diet or you're not. Yeah. To put vegetarianism and veganism together in one group is absolute BS. And anyone who does that cannot be trusted.
Okay, I'm going to pause you here real quick. So here's the thing. How I view most things is either I'm convinced or I'm not convinced. And so when it comes to something like diet, like I've said, I mean, in my mind, you kind of have to appeal to authority in the sense of authority plus studies. But I feel like it'd be connected to authority. Anyways, so I will be convinced as I'm convinced, and if I am, I am. I don't think we need to really go over it any further because I don't think I'm going to be convinced despite being told about it. You could send me what you think is the most convincing study or meta-analysis of why whatever diet you think is best, and I'll check it out. But as of now, with all the ideas that all the people have, I've been convinced that you can be, at least someone can be. I haven't been convinced to say that everybody at all stages can be vegan. I was just pointing out that was said by others. I am not saying that, which is why I stand against the idea of making it illegal to eat animals.
Actually, I can show you where you said that you would probably vote to criminalize all animal agriculture. So
there have
again,
one or...
you need to pick.
Yep.
Carson, you need to pick one or the other because now you're speaking out of both sides of your mouth. I can prove to you today that you have said otherwise, that you would. No. You didn't say that you would. You said that you probably would. And you also are feeding your daughter. You say that she was born vegan. Mm-hmm. And are you claiming that you don't believe that a vegan diet is appropriate for all stages? Because that would indicate that you're experimenting in a way that
it likely is. I'm
basically
not declaring
Russian roulette with your daughter's health.
I'm not declaring that I know it must be. I think it is. I think that I am feeding my daughter the best. I mean, for the most part, like not even just the fact that it's vegan, the actual healthiest choices you could feed one. at whatever age it happens to be. But yes, there's a difference between claiming that I feel that this is likely the case, and obviously I'd want to go off what I think is likely the case, versus declaring it must be fact for everyone. I have no interest in
Then
declaring
stick to that position. If you believe that that's a
I do.
fact, then stick to that position and stop riding the fence and saying that you don't know.
I have
If
no
you-
interest.
If you know well enough to limit your daughter's diet to an unbalanced diet, all plants,
Yeah,
and you think that an apple contains more essential human nutrients than a steak,
I did not make that
then
claim.
yes, you did.
No, I did not.
Yes, you did.
I did not say that I think an apple contains more essential nutrients. I
You
did not
said
make any
an
statement at
apple
all.
is healthier than a steak.
Yeah, I said if I had to guess which one would be healthier, if I ate one apple or
Okay,
one
by
steak.
healthy, what do you mean? Again, you're using these subjective terms,
Yeah.
and you're using them to ride the fence. So
I'm
you
not
need
trying to
pick.
ride any fence.
There's a lot of things that you're trying to ride the fence on, and today we're going to put you on one side of the fence or the other side of the fence.
Yeah, go for it. No, and here's the thing. Well, first I want to reply to a thing you said a second ago, just to clarify, in case you missed it in the conversations. When the couple times I said I probably or I might accept that idea of that law of outlawing owning and killing animals is only based on the idea that when that happened, we discovered that it was unhealthy for somebody, we'd have to reverse it immediately, because I care more about optimal human health than I care about the animals. But after optimal vegan health, I care about, I think it is a moral duty to care about sentient beings. So those couple times I said that, I was very specific on that. As for the there's no fence riding of declaring that I think that the most optimal diet, which I think would be probably something like any average primate would be, where it's probably more optimal to eat insects than to not eat insects, because we are primates. And so we are probably somewhat similar to chimpanzees, where we should probably be getting 75% of our food from fruit. And then we also consume some other things. I'm not declaring I know this to be fact. Okay. I'm saying that seems likely to me from my knowledge. Plus the studies I have looked into make me feel that I think it's fine and I think it's best for myself and my family.
Okay. Look, Carson.
Yeah.
A chimpanzee has a functioning cecum.
Okay.
Do you know what a functioning cecum is?
No, but I wrote it down from last time we talked, and I actually didn't.
You haven't bothered to look it
right
up
now. Correct. Cecum. Go for it. I'm just looking it up, but you can keep talking.
Okay. Where chimpanzees have a functioning cecum, we have an appendix, which is considered vestigial. It's not a functioning cecum. The purpose, the biological function of a cecum is to produce cecotropes. Cecotropes are food items. Okay?
Yep.
So there are two types of herbivores. And we're talking about, we can agree that humans are mammals. There's two types of herbivorous mammals. There's foregut fermenters and hindgut fermenters. A foregut fermenter has a four-chambered stomach. The first three chambers are there to cultivate microorganisms that forage and grow and multiply on fiber, cellulose. We don't have that. The fourth chamber in a ruminant stomach is a hydrochloric acid chamber, just like we've got at the bottom of our esophagus. Every time you see a hydrochloric acid chamber in a digestive system, it's there to break down proteins and fats.
Okay.
Not cellulose. It won't digest cellulose. And so a cow, for instance, is not eating grass to feed itself. A cow is eating grass to feed the bacteria that are in the rumen. It moves from the first chamber to the second chamber to the third chamber. And by the time that bacterial mass is ready to be dumped into the fourth chamber, which is a hydrochloric acid bath, that mass of microorganisms is equivalent to, say, a large jackrabbit. Because a trillion single cellular organisms is very similar to 1 trillion celled organism. And so you've got all these cell walls that are made of essential amino acids, essential fatty acids, B vitamins, the whole gambit of what's required for the cow. So the cow doesn't have to eat cecotropes because the hydrochloric acid bath comes after the cultivation of all of these bacteria. For something like a chimpanzee, there's no hydrochloric acid bath. And so it actually has to pass the cecotrope and then eat the cecotrope. And that's where it derives a large portion of its essential fatty acids, essential amino acids, essential vitamins and minerals, including B12. If that's where hindgut mammals, hindgut fermenters, get a large portion of their nutrition. Mm-hmm. Humans do not have a functioning cecum. They do not have a functioning rumen. 100% of the plants that you're eating today did not exist. A very short time ago, the broccoli that you eat never existed. The apples that you eat didn't exist.
Correct. None
of these plants existed. And we know medical anthropologists will tell you whenever they look at human remains, in order to, like if I was to find human remains on my property, call the police, they would send out, not just the police, but they would send out a medical anthropologist, because that medical anthropologist would need to determine the status of these remains. Mm-hmm. And so are these bones from yesterday? Are they from 10 years ago? Are they from 100 years ago? Are they from 10,000 years ago? Are they from before the agricultural revolution? And if it was before the agricultural revolution, there would be certain things missing from the skeletal remains. Things like tooth decay, caries, or cavities, signs of infection on the bones, strong, prominent tuberosities where the muscles attach. All of these would indicate that it was before the crop agriculture revolution, which points to the fact that before we were eating all these crops, we were eating a primary and animal-based diet, because that's what's available year-round to human beings. In fact, all of the studies looking at pre-agricultural revolution were animal-based. 50 to 70% animal-based.
Can I pause you real quick? Okay, so here's the thing. I do like learning about this kind of stuff. I think it's interesting. My quick thought on the chimp thing, I wasn't trying to make any stance that I know something to be the case. I'm interested in the things that you were sharing. It's something I hope to know more about at some point. But here's the thing. We could stick on nutrition if you want, but with the idea of talking about crop deaths, what I factor in is that to some people, to some vegans, and to how you view my stance on nutrition, a vegan might not care about their health. And so therefore we would like the original vegans, the ones that started the movement. They actually, 30 years after they started veganism, were talking about how excited they were that that studies were showing it could be healthy to be vegan, because they actually did it thinking that they were going to die young, because they were just doing some noble thing, which I think is crazy, but that's cool that they were doing it. But I guess when it comes to crop deaths, if we want to hop back to crop deaths, in my mind, it doesn't need to matter about the nutrition whatsoever. if we're deciding if the crop deaths is a reason to not be vegan, it would just be comparing the animal harm in crops to the animal harm in animal agriculture.
Okay. So let's do this. I'm going to, whenever you and I met, this was your end all be all of crop deaths.
Okay.
You said that you didn't care about crop deaths because those are the animals that are too slow or too stupid to get out of the way of the harvesters. Correct?
Probably something like that. I probably didn't know what a harvester was. I probably didn't use that word. But the basic idea of probably how I viewed crop deaths when I thought of the term crop deaths was just about that. Yeah.
Right. So since then, you've incorporated rodenticides.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So outside of those two, you're not really considering crop deaths, correct?
No, I consider to a lesser value. I consider pesticides and the
No, I said rodenticides.
Yeah. No, I know. I thought you were saying just those two. No, I said I also consider pesticides, and I also consider the knowledge of the outcome from pesticides of birds eating the pests. That's another thing I've learned since chatting with you. I think that matters.
Okay. Rodenticides, those are primarily anticoagulants.
Okay.
Okay. It can take between 7 to 14 days for these animals to internally bleed to death.
Okay.
Have you seen video footage of and you seem to always use rats, but we're talking about rats, moles, field mice, raccoons, armadillos,
Probably squirrels.
Squirrels. There's all types of.
Do non-rodents eat the rodenticides?
Yes.
Okay. Because armadillos.
And a raccoon wouldn't hesitate to eat it.
Okay, interesting. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So there are animals outside of and let me point out to the audience that you're using this word rodent because it's considered, it's not considered derogatory, but it is derogatory in the minds of people. So vegans will try to invoke these words that have a negative connotation because in people's minds, they think, oh, our rodents are dying because of rodenticides. Rodents are disgusting. Therefore, it's okay that we kill all of these rodents. And then you say, are animals outside of the rodent category killed by rodenticides? And obviously the question is, why would that matter? Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to differentiate saying that this animal suffering matters, the ones that are not rodents, and these other disgusting rodents, those animal sufferings and deaths don't matter because we don't like rodents. And so that's more of this intellectual dishonesty.
Do you think vegans are doing that?
Yes, of course they do.
Okay.
That's also why they'll label these animals as pests, right? You slap a pest label on it, and it's okay to kill it. It's okay. Those deaths and sufferings don't matter. And so it's not just rats. You continue to say it's just rats, and it's not. It's not just rats. It's all kinds of animals. And not only that, but secondary poisonings matter. It's ridiculous that we even have to have this conversation with vegans where they're saying, no, the secondary deaths don't matter.
Secondary
and I want everyone out there to realize that whenever vegans say that, okay, if we poison a mole and a mole goes out there and goes into a seizure and slowly bleeds to death in one spot over 7 days, and the day before it finally dies, and a bald eagle flies over and sees this body twitching on the ground and swoops down and eats that vole or that mole and ends up getting secondary poisoning and the bald eagle dies, the vegan will tell you that doesn't matter. I'm telling you that it does matter.
I agree, it
Secondary
matters.
poisonings matter.
100%.
And so you've got not only that first line of death and destruction and suffering caused by the direct poisoning of the rodenticides, but there's a problem with animals are being driven towards extinction because they're suffering from secondary poisoning. And that's mountain lions, lynx, coyotes, other predator, all the owls, the eagles, the hawks, all the animals that someone like Vegan Gaines would argue that they all need to be killed and murdered anyway. Yeah. And so you got these different sections of the vegan cult where these ones over here are wanting to kill all the predators, which is ridiculous whenever they're trying to argue that they care about animals. It's speciesist to be okay with killing predator animals. These guys were born into a universe that they don't understand, yet they want to dictate the circle of life. And they don't want to address the fact that you get rid of all the predator species and all of a sudden you'll have an herbivore population explosion followed by a forage destruction, and then you have this mass starvation event.
Yeah. Real quick, I want to respond to something here, just so somebody in the audience can be cleared up on both your and my stance. I'm Pickle Twitch, who I met yesterday, whose name is Dillian, says, why doesn't Reasonable Vegan mention animal field crops? And the reason I'm not is because I happen to know JD's stance on this, which is that the crop deaths that are caused, JD does not want those to happen either, even in the feeding of livestock. So he wouldn't want rodenticide to exist to protect crops that would feed livestock. And same here. Is that correct?
Am I against the primary and secondary poisonings caused by rodenticides?
Yeah, like if it's for crops that are used to feed livestock, like you don't want that, correct?
Yes, I think that when we look at the crop agriculture that feeds the animals, you've got 4% of those crops are alfalfa, another 4% of those crops are non-alfalfa hays, and then when you look at the other crops, the crops that are involved with the feeding of livestock, you've got corn and soybean. With corn, 36% of the corn is grown to feed animals. The other 64% is produced to make things like corn for the dinner table, high fructose corn syrup, alcoholic beverages, and the big one is ethanol. I've never seen a cow driving a car. I don't think that cows are consuming ethanol. In fact, I know that human beings consume ethanol. Vegans will play this BS game of saying, well, they consume it, but they don't eat it. Yeah.
Well, hold on.
They're eating it, but they're still consuming it, just like they consume entertainment. They consume movies, music, podcasts.
Well, hold on. We don't need to talk about all vegans. We can just talk about me. Similarly to Michaela just says, why does he, and this is about you, why does he care about rodenticide but not the animals he kills? And since we're not talking about other people, and I'm not lumping all non-vegans into one category, I'm just talking to you, my answer to Michaela, because I know JD well enough to answer this question for him, is he is empathetic enough to not want to randomly kill rodents. He only wants to kill the animals that he kills to eat because the nutrition, and therefore he wants them to not be harmed, but he is convinced that he needs them for health. Is this correct?
I know for a fact. I actually do have a Bachelor of Science degree.
Yeah, no, I
don't have to rely on any type of of authority.
I was saying the reason you care about
I don't feel that the nutrition is required. I know that the nutritional sustenance is there and it's required. So
but
outside of that mistake that you made and what you said, that you're right, is that yes, number one is that if you're going to say that honey is not vegan, and you will not even say that honey is vegan. So you, Carson, are the closest we're going to get to any vegan that will say that honey is not vegan, or that honey is vegan. So you're as close as we're going to get. There's no one out there that is, while you're generally not reasonable, you're reasonable enough to admit that there's an intellectual dishonesty going on there. You do it in a way that where you say, instead of acknowledging that all of these pesticides, these insecticides are driving the honeybee towards extinction, the intellectual dishonesty comes in when you try to distract from that by saying, but if I was to walk down the street and step on an ant, I wouldn't necessarily care about that.
Let me clarify something real quick. So if you had, can you name me a random crop? It doesn't matter what you name. Anything's good.
Brussels sprouts.
Brussels sprouts. If I had a plate that had Brussels sprouts on it, and I had a plate that had a pile of honey on it, and let's say we knew that both, due to pesticides for the Brussels sprouts, that both caused equal amount of harm and death to insects, the honey for the bees and the Brussels sprouts for bees and other insects. Let's say we knew they were equal and they were equal in health. Let's say I was convinced they were equal in health personally. Then I would say that both are equally vegan. The reason I might be hesitant to say that since crop deaths happen, that honey is equal to all crops is because I think that one should not eat beyond what they're eating intentionally for their own health. In the same sense that I don't want to judge you for you thinking that you need whatever meat products or whatever. If somebody was truly convinced that honey was good for their health and they were vegan and they wanted to consume honey, which I know somebody that does, he's right here actually, Contrarian 420. You totally should, and it would be equal to the crop that's equal harm. It's just different nutrients. I don't feel I need to consume honey, so I'm not going to do it just for taste pleasure is my only stance there. But real quick to finish the response to Michaela earlier, would you say that you think nobody should use pesticides, rodenticides, or any of those at all?
Yeah, I think they need to be incentivized out of the production of all human food.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that there are, vegan sources of. There's really nothing to replace it with. You could say, well, netting, right?
Yeah. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just trying to get your stance across to me and to the audience. You only want rodenticides to not exist because you actually care about those species of animals. You do not want them to suffer and die. Correct?
Well, you can't isolate it just to those animals. Do I value those animals? The answer is yes.
Okay.
But I also value all of the other animals that are affected by that.
Yeah, all the animals affected by it. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, exactly.
For instance, one of the things I've tried to get you to acknowledge, which you did one time, but you did it flippantly and dismissed it as something you didn't care about. But you don't care about insects. However, the insects, and let me pull this up, in fact, so that we can, give me just a second here.
Okay. Are you pulling up the video you made of me saying I don't care about insects?
No.
Okay. The amount of people that have told me how much they enjoy that video including my brother and my wife. That's good stuff. Sounds more unusual.
All right. I'm going to hold on.
Beastie defense.
Okay. So when you kill all of the insects, you kill insect eating birds. Okay. So there's an entire generation of birds that will end up dying. And they're not just, again, you take a cow in to have it slaughtered. They've got very strict rules about how they can be killed, despite the fact that animal rights activists have actually been proven to be paying for animal torture porn so that they can demonize the slaughtering of animals. The rule is that they are killed quickly and painlessly. So they've got a bolt gun that goes into the animal's brain, destroys it, boom, just like that. It's like 1/1,000,000th of a second.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, the pesticides that are killing the insects that you say you don't care about, well, you don't care about the bird's food source, because most birds, over 90% of the birds out there, are relying on insects because that's part of their food. That's
Again,
no. Insect-eating birds and their nestlings may starve if the spraying of insecticides eliminates all the insects in an area. They starve to death. Starving to death is something that entails long periods of suffering. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so this is a category of crop deaths that you've not incorporated into your crop deaths algorithm.
No, I have. I bring up birds quite a bit, actually. But yeah, no, I think that's an issue. I think I care more about the birds than I do about the insects, and I think that factors into it, and I think that's a problem. Yeah, no, I totally think that's a problem. Now, do I care more about birds than my own health? Of course not. So since I am convinced that the healthiest way to be is to eat plants, I will eat plants even if it leads to bird deaths, but I would prefer not to, and I would fight for not to. I would want to share the message, to get it across to the world, to get whatever the best options are, or contacting farms and figuring out where the best places to get produce from. I would prefer that, and I want that change to happen. If I were to be convinced that the insects, the birds, the rodents, and every other animal affected by crop deaths in total were suffering more than the animals in animal ag, then at least morally in that sense, I would think that it's more moral to eat animals. I don't know if I would do it unless I was convinced that it's healthy to eat animals. But I would have to be convinced that it causes more suffering, and then I would have to be convinced that it's healthy. But I want to leave the healthy out of it anyways. I'm just saying that's what I would personally need.
Okay, so 67 million birds are killed by pesticides sprayed on the crops that provide the items on the vegan menu. That's 67 million birds killed, but that's 10% of the birds that are harmed. So you've got 670 million birds that are being harmed.
Interesting.
You've got how many quadrillion insects?
I don't know.
Quadrillions of insects, correct?
Oh, maybe? Yes, I don't know.
You said it the other day.
I said a number? Oh, I mean, I probably just say a random number. I don't know the exact number.
Okay.
It's all right. I mean, we can just go off of that idea. The thing with insects that makes it hard is knowing what their pain is like, knowing how comparable that is to what we know of as pain. I think that it's reasonable to estimate the pain of various animals, but not insects. That would be more of a scientific study that I don't think has fully figured that out. But also, I'd be curious, is there a way to find out? Because you said that some pesticides are used on organic food. Is there a way to find out how many deaths happen from organic versus non-organic for birds? I guess there wouldn't be a way, but I'd be curious.
Well, are you familiar with pesticide drift?
Yeah. Is this the reason why certain pesticides would be on organic even if they weren't sprayed on it?
No.
Oh, okay, then no.
Okay, so pesticide spray drift is the movement of pesticide or dust droplets through the air at the time of application or soon after. Okay, so as they're spraying these deadly pesticides, the wind blows. Correct? You would agree that the wind is blowing in most cases?
Yes.
Yeah, so the wind blows these pesticides east, west, north, and south, depending on, at the moment, which direction the wind is blowing.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you're doing is you're saying, has there been a study where people have chased this pesticide drift and, like, let's chase it 10 miles, and how many insects, how many birds, how many mammals are being injured and killed by pesticide drift and by the pesticides that stay there? And not only that, but then we have to look at
well, more so what I'm wondering is if we can detect what pesticides are inside the dead bird or the insect of the dead bird. I would be curious if it's pesticides that are intentionally sprayed for non-organic food versus are there pesticides that are intentionally on organic food that is inside of the dead birds? The drift, I can't see how the drift would affect anything for my stance.
Okay, the way that the drift affects things is that, first of all, only 5% of the crops out there that are grown today are organic. So what you're trying to do is dismiss 95% of the crop agriculture that produces the items.
No, I'm trying to remind you that you're talking to me and I eat organic food.
Right, but that would be like you're saying you're talking to me, so I can represent all livestock agriculture with regenerate ruminant rotational grazing system.
No, it's why when people in the comments talked about you as if the non-vegan, I am going off of your ideas. I respect you differently from other non-vegans because you don't think the pesticide should be sprayed at all, where most non-vegans would be pro-pesticides and pro-killing animals.
No, I disagree that this idea that non-vegans are these heathens out there that are looking to kill and torture animals.
Not heathens, they just don't care the same way vegans don't care about the insects.
No, because vegans don't care about the animals. What they care about is virtue signaling about the fact that they don't eat the animals. In other words, vegans are okay with gunmen shooting a deer in a cornfield, but the moment you go out there to try to eat that deer, that becomes a problem.
No, they're just not knowledgeable on it. I talked to a vegan yesterday, a great guy, love him. And I asked him if you were out in the forest and you saw an apple and a deer was about to eat that apple and you could shoot the deer to get the apple, would it be vegan? And he said no. And I explained to him that it was kind of a trap. I was pointing out that this is crop deaths, putting out rodenticides or just hunting crop deaths, killing an animal to eat the food they were going to eat is not vegan, which this vegan admitted to. Most vegans just don't think to that level, and they don't know how to handle the fact that with that knowledge, you cannot be fully vegan, which is why you have to do the best you can.
Vegans don't think to that level.
Correct.
Okay, that is key.
Agreed.
That is key.
That's why I'm trying to spread the information. Yeah.
It reflects an apathy. Okay, when you really care about something, then you will spend the effort to learn the specifics about that something. In other words, if you care about crop deaths, then you and I would be talking about all the different ways that crops are killing animals.
Well, we can talk about that.
Rather than watching you jump through hoops and do all of these mental gymnastics to try to ask questions like, well, okay, but what about organic pesticides? Do we have any empirical proof to prove that organic pesticides are less deadly than the conventional pesticides, which are used primarily in crop agriculture?
What does that have to do with anything?
Exactly. You trying to split hairs does not have to do with anything.
If you were trying to prove
what
me
we
wrong,
know is that organic pesticides are there. Do you know what?
If you were trying to hold on, if you're trying to prove me wrong by telling me what horrible things happen in animal agriculture, that wouldn't mean anything because I don't eat animals. So if you're trying to prove me wrong with what happens with non-organic,
you don't eat animals, but you're responsible for killing animals.
Yes, correct. But I'm
pointing
out that you can't have something against me that has nothing to do with me.
Yes, it does. It has everything to do with you because number one, you say that you stopped eating things like vegan donuts, but you haven't lost any. There's no indication visually that you stopped eating vegan junk food. Okay?
Do I look like insanely overweight to you or something?
No, you don't look insanely overweight, but you have not lost a pound. You have not lost any weight. You still look like you're overweight. Okay.
Gotcha.
If it was 2 months since the last time you had anything like
do
a
I
vegan
look like
donut,
I weigh more than you do? To you, I look like I weigh more than you.
You look like your body. You look like your body fat percentage is higher than mine. Yes.
Interesting. Okay. Not that it matters. It's fine. I know that I am a bit overweight. Not too much. I don't know what I can stand to lose, 30, 40, whatever. Most people can probably stand to lose more than they would even think. But yeah, what about this? So if I don't consume the vegan donuts, what's your point here?
Okay. You know that I was a professional sports nutritionist, okay?
You told me, yes, correct.
And for years and years and years, my professional job was helping athletes reach optimal body composition for their given sport. And so in most cases, that means reducing body fat percentage. My eyes are well trained to just look at someone and have an idea of what their body fat percentage is. We can have your mug shot from 2 months ago and compare it to your mug shot today, and there's been no change. There's been absolutely no change in your body fat percentage. And so if there's no change in your body fat percentage, that means that your diet hasn't changed in a significant way. In other words, you're still you may not realize this, Carson, but when you're eating excess sugar and starch, you're going to be holding excess body fat. And when you stop eating excess sugar and starch, then that body fat immediately begins to go down. Gotcha. You've had 2 months to exhibit some type of decrease in body fat percentage, and you've not done it.
Well, I actually don't agree, but I also don't think it's much worth talking about. But I do want to say real quick, I put up this Crucible clips comment because I thought it was funny, and I'll take it away. But Crucible dude, I think I saw earlier you said you're not Andrew, but I'm not sure which one you are. You guys should check your email to make sure you got it because I'm curious about come on and debate on your guys' channel. So let's set it up. Okay, but so we were talking about the fact that I personally eat organic. I buy organic food whenever I can. Now, I know a lot of vegans are against that. But anyways, if we're talking me and you, what's right or wrong? And you're talking about the pesticides from certain stuff that you're saying other vegans eat. That's worth talking about, and I can agree with you. I don't know if I would agree with you unless I saw the specific numbers on how much of crops it would take to make me think that that's more or less humane than a cow or whatever. But I do think whether you think I've lost weight or not, that because I'm not talking about health, I'm talking about the harm to the animals, to the insects, to the rodents.
No. See, here you go. Here you go, moving the goalpost again. No because earlier you said what matters is health, number one for you.
To me, what matters to
Right.
me is health. My
Right.
stance
And
on
so
health.
again, you're moving the goalposts.
Nope.
Whenever,
Hold on.
whenever you, as
Hold
an
on.
example, are
Nope.
convenient,
Nope.
then
Nope.
you'll use that. But then
Let
whenever
me
it's
explain
not,
then.
you
If you
want
don't
to
understand
refer
me,
to all vegans.
if you don't
Make up your
understand me,
mind. Are we
if you
going
don't
to
understand,
use you as an example, or are we talking about veganism in general?
if you
Pick
don't
one. Pick one or the other.
if you don't understand me, then let me explain. I am letting you know that personally, I care more about health than anything when it comes to veganism. That doesn't need to be a huge topic of conversation. That's just me letting you know my stance. If we're talking about the moral side of am I causing more suffering and death to animals by being vegan than not being vegan? We have to go on what I am doing. So if I am eating only organic produce, which I wouldn't say it's 100%, probably more like 90%, but let's say hypothetically I'm eating 100% organic produce, then for you to figure out if I'm causing more, if I'm doing less of a vegan thing than eating just meat from farms like yours, then you're going to have to show me what's happening with what I'm consuming, whether I care about health or not.
No. And this is
How?
why, Carson. Okay. This is how. Listen, okay? Pick a sport. I want you to pick a sport. I don't care which one
Any
it is.
sport?
Pick
Okay,
one.
tennis.
Okay, tennis. All right.
Where could this go?
So here's Iga Swiatek prevailed in an incredible battle against Carolina Muchova to win her third French Open title, winning 6-2, 5-7, and 6-4. Okay, so 6-2, 5-7, and 6-4. Let's move that over into a text document so we can look at the score. Bear with me, and I'll show you why this matters.
Okay, it's fine. I'm pretty open-minded. Let's do it. Also, just so you know, I got about 13 minutes left, so we might have to do a follow-up. Well, you said that the same for you, right? You had 2 hours from the start.
Yeah, it's just that, if we could have just started with you and I, we could have talked about this and ironed all of this out. But here we are. It's been months and months since you first told me that you wanted to learn about crop deaths, and here we are wrapping up another live stream, and we still haven't been able to do it because some animal deaths matter and other animals' deaths don't.
Yeah,
this
true.
is the intellectual dishonesty that is prevalent throughout the entire vegan cult, and it's just it.
We'll see. We'll see.
What I'm happy about is the fact that most people see through the BS. It's only these few vegan influencers that think that they're fooling the population, but
you're wrong.
Their intellectual
because most people don't.
Is very, very obvious.
The only thoughts that counter the idea morally would be the ones you're referring to, which I agree with a lot of. Most people don't even know about any of that. Most people just don't want to think of themselves as bad, so they go, oh, vegan bad, I don't like vegan. Now, you happen to have some reasons, but no, I think you're completely wrong about most people seeing through BS. No way, that's BS.
Okay, here's this. I've got the score up there. It's 6-2. There were 3 matches, right?
Okay.
6-2, 5-7, and 6-4. Now, what if we looked at that and said 6 ? 5 ? and 6 ?
Okay.
And you're going around telling everyone that the person that scored the 6, the 5, and the 6 won the match. Okay. And then someone else says, no, you can't make that claim because you don't have both scores.
Correct.
You would have to have both scores in order to come to the conclusion that one player won and one player lost.
Correct.
You're making the claim that a vegan diet causes less animal deaths, and the only thing that you'll accept is for me to provide you the exact score, for example, organic pesticides. And if you can compare those numbers, and the organic pesticides are killing more animals than animal agriculture, then you'll acquiesce and say, okay, you're right. However, you have no business claiming
I didn't claim
victory.
I didn't claim that.
You don't have both scores. You only have one
I agree
score,
with you.
because animal agriculture cares enough to at
This is a
least
straw man.
tally those numbers.
This is a straw man.
How
I did
is it
not
a
make
straw
this. I'll tell you.
You
I
want
did
to
not
declare. You want to declare victory with
Nope.
without having both numbers, correct?
Nope. That's why it's not a straw man. I am not declaring victory. Because I am guessing one is right, I'm making my actions. So we don't have the number for either side. We don't have the answer. So I have to go with what I think is likely right, especially in the case of morals. If we're talking about which thing I think is morally right, I'm choosing I think this is morally right. I am very openly and verbally admitting that it could be the other way. It could be not the right answer. And if I was shown that, I would switch over. But I wouldn't randomly just switch over with no numbers. So I'm not making the claim that's right. I'm saying if it's wrong, I need to be shown. And if I'm shown, I would act upon that.
Okay. So what you're saying is that
And every other vegan probably would as well. But
we got two cornfields. Okay. One cornfield, there's a gunman, and in the other cornfield, there's a gunman.
Got it.
The gun and cornfield number one, the gunman kills the deer to protect the corn.
Okay.
And field number two, the gunman kills the deer to eat the deer.
Uh-huh.
You're saying that the deer that died via gunshot is moral, and the deer that died via a gunshot to protect the corn is moral, but the deer that was killed in order to kill the deer to eat it is immoral.
No, incorrect. I am not stating that.
Then why didn't you just say why did you throw this morality issue in whenever what we're trying to do is focus on the amount of animal suffering and death?
Well, because I'm trying to figure out what is most moral, especially if you neutralize the nutrition part. So if we're leaving nutrition out of it and we're assuming that anything you can consume is equal, I don't think corn is healthier than deer. I don't know the answer to that. But assuming that all food is equal in that sense, because we're not getting into nutrition, I would be going off of what is most moral. If you kill a deer that's outside of the corn just to eat it, you're not killing it to stop it from eating the corn. I would only compare that to the one that you killed to eat the corn based on how much corn you're getting. It would all come down to the outcome. It wouldn't matter what reason you did it. Shooting a deer to eat it or shooting a deer to save your corn, those are equal. One deer dead, it doesn't matter if you eat it or not. I think it's fine to eat roadkill. The eating it isn't the problem. But if corn and deer are equal and you kill a deer so you can get the corn, and let's say the cornfield that you saved from the deer had twice as much food, then I would say that's the more moral act. But you might as well eat the deer if it's healthy that you shot to save the corn. Does that make sense? No matter what, it's going to be a mathematical thing.
No, it should be very simple. You don't have to turn all of these intellectual somersaults. You just look at the animals.
That's not intellectual at all. I'm just saying.
It actually is.
If you make something suffer, would you rather one mouse suffer or two mice suffer?
Are crop deaths right now larger or smaller than the number of animals that suffer and die via animal agriculture? Okay? Leaving all the nutritional deficiencies of veganism out of it, we just focus on the animal suffering and death.
Yeah.
You cannot claim that one has more than the other because you haven't looked at all of the different areas
that one has more than the other.
where animals are suffering and die. And so I'm going to go so that you guys keep trying to prevent me from doing this. I'm going to go through these real quick. I may leave one out because I'm doing this, off the cuff here. But we've got the animals that are too stupid to get out of the way of the harvesters, but it's not just the harvesters. It's also the plows. Okay. It's also the,
can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
Just because I want to counter that real quick. Would you find it equally moral, in your opinion, if your neighbor was driving down the street and accidentally hit a dog versus your other neighbor just picked a dog up and stabbed it for fun? Are those equally moral?
Well, here's where that is intellectually dishonest. How many dogs have you run over in your life?
I don't think I ran over any.
Okay, so you haven't run over any dogs.
Mm-mm.
Yet we know for a fact that animals are being deliberately killed for your menu.
Mm-hmm.
So using this idea that killing an animal accidentally versus killing an animal intentionally, when the animals that are being killed via crop deaths are not unintentional. Okay. And also, if every time you drove to the grocery store to get spinach,
Mm-hmm.
you ran over 25 dogs accidentally,
Mm-hmm.
after the first time, you think, wow, oh, that sucked. I ran over 25 dogs today.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was on Monday. And then on Tuesday, you get back and you go, oh shit, I ran over another 25 dogs. And then on Wednesday, you get back from the supermarket and it's, oh my God, I ran over another 25 dogs.
No, I got you.
And so every day you're running over 25 dogs. At some point, you have to stop lying to yourself and you have to admit that every time you go to the grocery store to get your plant-based diet, you're killing 25 dogs. At some point, the fact that it's an accident is no longer going to be accepted as your bullshit excuse.
I think you misunderstand me. And one of these days, you're going to recognize that I'm an honest person and I'm not trying to trick you or anything. But what I'm trying to point out is... I
can't be tricked. That's the problem, is that I can't be tricked.
You can't be tricked.
That's why Michael's not here right now.
You're treating it as if I'm trying to be dishonest when I'm not. But I think you're misunderstanding what I'm trying to point out. I agree with you that if, even in the case of the harvesting, the tractors tilling up whatever, and dumb mice and snakes are in the way and they die or whatever, I agree with you that if this continuously happened, similar to the dogs getting hit, it would be worth trying to figure out a different method. What I'm pointing out is if a mouse gets hit by this tractor on accident, that in my mind, and I would assume yours, is different than putting out rodenticide to intentionally kill the mouse. It doesn't mean that the tractor one is okay. It's just important to recognize there are differences.
No, there's not. There's no differences.
What? Oh, that's crazy. Okay, go on.
Okay,
You're fine.
Look,
fine. It's all right.
Okay, listen. If I take a cow in to have it slaughtered so that I can eat it, that cow is going to, I can't see that it could be argued that cow is suffering at all.
Okay.
Because the slaughterhouse is not in the business of torturing animals. It's in the business of processing and packaging meat. And so the killing process is designed to be as quick and painless as possible. The more pain that the animal suffers, then the more time that the animal will be moving around, which means the less time that they have to cut it up into pieces and package it and prepare it for delivery or for pickup. And so this animal is only going to experience minimal suffering, if any at all. However, the animals that are killed by your rodenticides, your herbicides, your fungicides, your insecticides, all of these petrochemicals that are drowning the crop fields, those animals are going to be suffering gargantuan amounts. So there's nothing more immoral about some cute little field mouse dying in agony, bleeding to death internally over 7 to 14 days. There's nothing more moral about that than killing an animal, killing a cow in the blink of an eye. And this constant claim from the vegan saying that the cow death is immoral and the field mouse death is moral is it just it's to me. I love that you guys keep playing this bullshit game because it
Why do you keep
exposes
lumping me
veganism
in?
as intellectually inept,
You're here having a
intellectually
conversation with
dishonest.
Yeah, we can talk about other vegans and we can trash talk them all you want because I agree with a lot of what you're saying. Again, I am not the ones you're talking about, so we might as well figure out.
You just now said that the animals that die for nutritional sustenance, direct nutritional sustenance, are immoral, and the animals that die for your menu are moral.
I never said that. Why would you
Yes,
think I
you
said
did.
that? I
Yes,
did
you
not.
did.
No. I said I haven't been convinced that it would be that the ones that die are more immoral, but I didn't say that they're moral. It is not
Then
moral.
what did you say? Then what did you say? You brought up morality in regard to animal deaths.
Yes.
One deer killed is moral, and the other deer killed is immoral.
I did not. No. You talked about the deer outside the corn, and I said both are equal. You kill the deer, you're killing the deer. The thing that makes one more acceptable would be if it's feeding more. If in both those cases, if you're saving this corn, and in both cases the corn saves, so it doesn't really matter. So it depends on what's necessary, and yeah. So it would just depend on I don't want random things killed for no reasons. I mean, we feel the same way on the topic. So the question is, which one leads to the more random? And it's complicated because we have to factor out the health aspect, which is fine. Side drift runoff. But yeah. One thing I think that would be very interesting to figure out because you are against pesticides. So vegans aside, let's imagine no humans were vegan and we were just trying to figure out what the best way to cause the least harm is. You want pesticides to not exist. So when we talk about organic, so we have organic, we have non-organic, and then we have people having their own personal farms in their backyards and whatnot. I love the idea of everybody having farms, but most people aren't going to have this situation. And I don't know how well it's going to go if the only way people could rely on food was to trade with their neighbors. So there's going to be food in grocery stores. So I think the question comes down to what is the best approach to this, whether it's for human health or if we care about insects and other animals suffering. And so I don't know. You're going to have to show me what pesticides are used for organic food and which ones aren't.
I've already showed you a bunch of those. I listed a bunch of them too for you, and you can't even list them. The ones that I've already shown you. Why should I continue to give you information that you're going to choose to ignore?
I have no interest in choosing to ignore it. I can bring up the study right now.
Then pull up the ones that I've already given you instead of pretending that I haven't already given you examples.
As far as I know, you sent me the one thing about the broccoli, and it showed like on your average piece of broccoli that was taken from your average store in the U.S., I think it said maybe 7 pesticides showed up. And on your average non-organic piece of broccoli, it was like in the hundreds, like 300 something of pesticides showed up. Now, it would be interesting to find out which ones of those pesticides showed up on the organic because those are organic approved pesticides versus which ones show up from the drift that you're talking about.
Where is your evidence that organic means less animal death? Where is your evidence of that? You keep making that claim.
I don't have evidence of that. I'd want to see the evidence of the opposite.
No. You're making the claim. You're making the claim that organic produce is absent.
I see your
does not entail animal deaths. If you're going to make that claim, then
I see
back
your
it up.
misunderstanding.
You can't tell me.
I see
you
your
can't
misunderstanding.
give me You can't lay on me
Garland,
the onus of
I see
proving
your
you
misunderstanding.
wrong. Prove yourself right.
Garland, I see your
Prove
misunderstanding.
yourself right if you're going to make a
misunderstanding.
claim.
Hold on. Just let me point something out. Here's where the misunderstanding is. You're making the claim about insecticides. or pesticides or whatever on crops. And I'm saying, since I eat organic, I would want to be shown that. I'm not saying organic doesn't cause it where non-organic does. I'm saying instead of you just declaring pesticides, I'm saying let's make sure we're talking about the foods I eat. So I'm asking you if you have something to show me on why organic food causes more deaths. I'm not claiming it does not. Hell, as you know, before we first talked 3 months ago, I didn't even know what most crop deaths were. I'm not making a claim. I'm trying to understand. And you're the one maybe with the information that can help me understand.
Okay. So I'm going to show you, you can ignore this, but the audience is going to see it. Okay. Crop deaths. Number one, when we met, was a portion of what you were acknowledging. Mm-hmm. I can show you video of you making the claim that the reason that crop deaths don't matter is because it's just a few animals that only die because the machinery, they're too stupid or too slow to get out of the way of the machinery. And you were using the harvesting. You were referring to harvesting. You were leaving out 2/3 of that picture. There's also the plowing and there's also the cutting.
Well, hold on. Just like everything else we talked about, I wasn't making a claim that this is the only case. I was sharing what I understood of it. But anyways, go on. Big difference.
And so I corrected you, and then I brought up the rodenticides, which is number 2, the rodenticides and the it's not just the anticoagulants. That's one of the more suffering inducing rodenticides is the anticoagulants. It's not just rodents, but it's also other omnivorous animals. And there's also the secondary poisonings. You have at least talked about the rodents that are killed, but you don't talk about the non-rodent animals that are killed directly, and you don't talk about the secondary poisonings that occur caused to the animals that eat those injured or dead bodies. Okay,
I talked about the
could be a
birds
bald eagle,
times.
Could be a hawk, could be an owl, could be a cougar, could be any number of animals that are dying by secondary poisonings. Anyone is welcome to go to Google and look up secondary rodenticide poisonings, and you'll see that animals, even endangered animals, are being threatened with extinction because those animal deaths numbers are so high. Carson will argue that because we don't have the precise numbers that we can't consider them, but I'm telling you that those animals are being driven to extinction, that the animal deaths are so high that they're being driven towards extinction.
Not only do I mention those, but I think that we can only react to what we know. So if they're
you're not going to know these things unless you choose to research them.
I know.
So far, you've chosen not to research them. To me, that indicates apathy. Okay. And then you've got number 3, the herbicides. The herbicides don't just kill plants; they also kill animals. Do you need proof of that?
What is it?
Okay. Yeah, we've moved now from rodenticides to herbicides. They also kill mammals, birds, amphibians, fish, insects.
Yeah, that's not good. I don't like that.
Okay, and then with the fungicides, do you need proof that the fungicides don't just kill funguses? They also kill mammals, birds, amphibians, fish,
obviously with these things
insects.
I would need proof, but I believe you. Go on.
Okay, then let's pull that up.
We don't need to pull it up. I got to go here about 8 minutes
so you don't want to see it, but I'm telling you that that's a fact. The other people out there, the audience can look this up and see for themselves that fungicides kill all kinds of animals. Okay.
Yeah.
Same thing with, I listed fungicides twice there, probably because they kill twice as many animals. Now we move on to the insecticides. They kill insects, mammals, fish, birds, not just directly, but also because of insecticide drift and runoff, and then also because of starvation. Okay, because many of the animals, not just birds, but there are species of reptiles and other animals like raccoons that eat insects. There's all types of animals out there that rely on insects as a primary food source, and you're causing a lot of those animals to die. We can't count them if we don't address them.
Gotcha.
I'm asking.
Hey, I'm going to pause you real quick. Not only do I have to go, but I have to pee really bad. So I'm going to not go, but I'm going to run and pee while you finish reading this so that the audience can hear it, and then I will listen to it later. But I'm going to come right back. So you keep going. I got to pee.
Okay. So you've got all of these insecticides that are killing animals directly and indirectly. The vegans will claim, well, the ones we kill indirectly don't matter. Animal deaths don't matter. Again, more of this animal deaths don't matter from vegans. And then you get into the fact that all of these agrochemicals, whether it's rodenticides, herbicides, fungicides, insecticides, these are petroleum-derived chemicals. And so there's a gargantuan amount of petroleum-associated animal and death that you have to factor in, because you've got oil spills that are going to represent a significant amount of the animal suffering and death that's caused by the mainstream crop agriculture that produces the items on the vegan menu. And then you get into the fact that without the organic crops, and not just organic crops, but also the mainstream crop agriculture, will use things like manure and blood meal and bone meal. However, getting rid of all livestock would mean more potassium mining. Potassium mining is very destructive. When you vegans will say, well, you can destroy the environment without harming animals. No, you can't. When you destroy the environment, you're killing animals. Come on. Stop playing these stupid, intellectually dishonest games. Destroying the environment, that's where the animals live. So destroying the environment kills animals, and to say otherwise is absolutely stupid, and it's dishonest. So admit that when you destroy the environment, you are also killing animals. So potassium mining destroys the environment. There's all types of pollution that kills animals that's associated with potassium mining. And potassium and phosphate mining, those are both finite resources. And so when you not only mine these things, they not only use gargantuan amounts of water, but you permanently pollute that water. You make it so that it is now radioactive. So it's useless for human beings after that, versus the water that a cow drinks. The cow drinks the water in the pond, which fell from the sky, and then the cow walks over into the pasture and pisses. So that water goes into the ground to feed the plants. It's not like the water that's used up in potassium mining and phosphate mining, where the water is permanently made unusable. That water re-enters the environment and actually benefits the environment, benefits the animals. So you've got potassium mining, a source of crop deaths; phosphate mining, a source of crop deaths; synthetic nitrogen, which is petroleum derived, not just directly, but also indirectly, because synthetic nitrogen production requires gargantuan amounts of methane. In fact, the studies have shown that the methane emissions that are caused by the synthetic production of nitrogen were 100 times bigger than the nitrogen fertilizer industry had confessed to, but it turned out to be 3 times more methane emissions than all other industrial production combined. 3 times more than all other industrial production combined. So you've got the fact that you're causing environmental destruction by the potassium, phosphate, and nitrogen production. And then, of course, the oceanic dead zones. And yes, there's corporations like Kraft, Bayer, Monsanto that have funded the ongoing propaganda that says that, oh no, it's the livestock that are responsible for oceanic dead zones. Well, no, let's look at the facts.
Okay.
What are the primary? Let me finish. I'm almost finished.
Okay.
The primary nutrient that's causing oceanic dead zone is nitrogen. And what is the source of the nitrogen that's being delivered into the Gulf of Mexico, for instance, which is one of about 530 different oceanic dead zones out there. But where's it coming from? Oh, look at there. 41% is coming from farm fertilizer, and 9% is coming from legume crops, right? Which has somehow, for some reason, been separated. And confined animal manure is 10%. So you count those legume crops plus the farm fertilizers, and you've got 50% as opposed to 10% that's coming from crop agriculture versus animal agriculture. So you have to count those deaths also, because what is oceanic dead zone? That's animal suffering and death. That's a source of crop deaths. So the oceanic dead zones are a part of the crop deaths. And so you have to, when you talk about crop deaths, you have to consider all of those, not just the animals that are run over by the harvesters or the rodenticides, but all of those other sources of crop deaths as well. Do I have exact numbers? No. But I have asked you, Carson, multiple times to help me come to a count on these, but you've chosen not to. Instead, you want to bring Michael in here to try to debunk whether or not these crop deaths matter.
Okay, here's the thing. I didn't bring Michael in here to help debunk nothing. I thought it could be an interesting conversation to have me and Michael. I don't mind having conversations just me and you, and we can plan them for just me and you. And I would love for you to send me this. I want to go through it. And I might ask you some questions for certain things. I might look up my own for certain things. We can do follow-ups, and we can just make notes and figure out what we figure out together every time we talk. But anyways, there's no intention like that with Michael. I want to respond to a couple things here on this side, though. Louis Ghetto said, nothing Garland has claimed or argued is valid against veganism. Veganism is not about humans living without causing harm at all. There's no intentional harm entailed. Hold on. I'm gonna defend this for you. I strongly disagree. Lewis is a friend of mine, and we should talk about this, me and you. But if humans do an action that knowingly will cause harm, that must have to do with veganism, and if not, there's no point to veganism. Veganism would be silly at that point.
Completely agree.
Okay. What's that?
I completely agree with what you just said.
And then Akash says he's very concerned, and this is about you, with primary and secondary deaths from pesticides, not about the animals that are used directly for consumption or use. And the point here that might be missed is similar to myself. I focus on my health. Garland focuses on his health, which I think all humans should do. And so the reason Garland will care about the primary and secondary pesticide deaths is because those ones are not only harming humans, but they're harming those animals. And I take him at his word that he cares about those animals. The reason he believes it's okay to directly harm the animals that he consumes would be because that consumption would be for health. So it's important to take people at their word and know what they're meaning by what they're saying. And I just want to point these two things out.
I want to also add, I just remembered one that I forgot here.
Yeah, go for it.
Number 12. Actually, I listed fungicides twice here, so let's take that out. Change that to a 5. Change that to a 6. Change that to a 7. 8. 9, and now finally 10. And number 11 would be the production of supplements.
Oh, yeah.
Because the production of supplements requires gargantuan amounts of coal and petroleum and the burning of methane, the production of coke. If you don't know what coke is, I'm not talking about the coke that vegans drink. I'm talking about the coke that's produced from the burning of coal. And so coal produces coke, and coke is required for a number of supplements that are required by the vegan population. So the there's crop deaths, large amounts of crop deaths that are not factored in. And of course, the vegan activists, maybe not Carson, but the majority of vegan activists will say those deaths and sufferings do not matter because they're not intentional. They're not, they don't factor in as much as negative rights violations. But the truth is that those intellectually hollow excuses only matter to a very small percentage of even vegans. So I like whenever people like Michael try to use this negative rights violation bullshit argument, is that most people see that for what it is. It's dishonesty. And so the majority of the non-vegan population will see that and go, here, look at this vegan making up excuses. And even vegans will look at that and say, look at this guy trying to make up these bullshit excuses. And so I actually like whenever vegans use these intellectually dishonest tactics. Garland doesn't know what veganism is. It's not about not doing harm and death. It's about negative rights violations and using up all these intellectually dishonest, hollow excuses in order to justify the death, destruction, and suffering caused by the crop agriculture that produces the items on the vegan menu.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you that it's not good when people are dishonest. I don't think Lewis is being dishonest. I just strongly disagree with him. As far as Michael, I think he, at very least, whether he didn't get to or not, he didn't state his stance well enough. It's not that he didn't state it well. He didn't get a chance to state it for you to know that he actually does care, even if it's not rights violations. He just views rights violations as worse, similar to how I do.
Yeah, what I'm telling you is that there's only a small percentage of vegan activists that buy into that. No one else does. So as soon as someone says negative rights violations to justify the gargantuan amounts of death, destruction, and suffering that's caused by the mainstream crop agriculture that produces most of the items on the vegan menu, no one cares about your rationalizations. No one cares about the intellectual hoops that you want us to jump through. We're not jumping through it because veganism started out by saying that was cruelty-free. And then I proved that wrong. And then you went into, it's cruelty. It's not cruelty-free, but it's just the animals that are killed during the harvesting process. I proved that wrong. And then they said, well, okay, but it's only the animals that are killed by the insecticides, and we don't care about insects. And then I said, but what about honey? And he said, it depends on whether it's a negative rights violation. I said, well, what about rodenticides? Okay, well, yeah, that was intentional, but that's only rats. And then I said, it's not just rats. It's these other 150,000 species. Oh, well, yeah, but that's only rodenticides, and you can't give me an exact number, so it doesn't matter. So, well, no, it does matter because if you've got insecticides that are causing starvation and all of these crop deaths associated that I've listed here, 11 so far. And so every time I point to the fact that veganism is deadly, then there's a moving of the goalposts. And this negative rights violations is just the latest moving of the goalposts. Yes, we've moved from cruelty-free now to this intellectually dishonest,
everybody's different,
invoking negative rights violations.
No.
Yes.
Lewis here only cares about the negative rights violations, and he's a vegan.
Buy into this BS. Thankfully,
he feels his way. I feel my way.
This is why the only thing keeping veganism afloat right now are companies like Bayer and Monsanto.
But what you're missing out on is most people don't agree with your stance.
No, that most people agree with my stance.
No, most people are perfectly fine with all the horrible, garbage, unhealthy food they eat at the store.
No, they're not. Back that up with facts. Back it up.
80% of the U.S. is overweight. These people are going to the store buying whatever random stuff. In the same way that vegans are becoming vegan, the rest of the world isn't becoming regenerative farm lovers. I would love that, but they aren't. So you are what you are, but that doesn't mean that every individual out there, if you're mad at a vegan's cause of insecticides, you have to be mad at all the non-vegans' cause for the same thing as well. We either talk individually, we talk about a certain topic or whatever, but we don't just talk about in veganism on a whole.
Let me show you.
Go for it. I'm so bad at hopping off here when I got to hop off here. But
the majority of voters surveyed support greater oversight of industrial animal farms. Mm-hmm. Okay. So one of the problems here is that the animal farms are being focused on, and the majority of people are more than willing to improve the CAFO model. Get rid of it. Don't do it through criminalization. Do it through changing the incentives.
You're talking about ending factory farming, right?
Yeah, I'm not talking about ending it. Okay, I'm talking about disincentivizing it.
Yeah, for sure.
I am not on board with you criminalizing any kind of animal agriculture. You can stop trying to get me on board with that. I will never be on board with criminalizing any type of agriculture. I am in favor of disincentivizing it because it's been incentivized. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'll give you an example if I can pull it up real quick.
Yeah.
Here we go. The corn industry is one of the most powerful industries out there. And you will never see the cattle industry giving money to the corn industry because the corn industry is the CAFO model's daddy. Okay. Mm-hmm. So the corn growers support the cattlemen's education. So the partnership between the National Corn Growers Association and the National Cattlemen's Beef Association was developed to provide resources to the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, state and breed affiliates through a grant. So grant means the corn industry is pouring money into the CAFO or concentrated, what you would call factory livestock farming. So the factory livestock farming is being incentivized by the crop agriculture. Mm-hmm. So what I'm in favor of is not allowing the corn industry to demonize all livestock farming and have people like you and others demonizing all livestock farms, wanting to get me on board to help criminalize the CAFO model. No, let's disincentivize it. Let's stop the Corn Growers Association from pouring money into the National Cattlemen's Beef Association so the National Cattlemen's Beef Association becomes beholden to the corn industry, right? Because they're relying on this money from the corn industry. It's all perverted.
I agree with you. Do you think it should be illegal to stab a dog for fun?
I'm not going to answer. I'm not going to go into that.
That's all right. Okay. I just want you to think about that for the next time we talk. The idea of not wanting to put laws
let me ask you, do you think that it should be legal to poison field mice for fun?
To poison field mice for fun? No.
Okay, good. Then you've answered your own question. The animals that die for your crops are just as their lives and suffering are just as valuable and real as the animals that die in order to provide us essential nutrients that aren't available.
True,
in
but
the
I don't
vegan
think
diet.
you must not have understood my question. What I meant by it, because I'm what I took out of your claim about not wanting laws to be against like factory farming would be that you just don't want any laws involving treatment of animals within factory farming. Like you wouldn't want to narrow down what's legally acceptable, or you're just saying
Absolutely not. No. Now, if you want to make laws against spraying fungicides on crops like Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cabbage, spinach, let's talk about making laws against these petrochemicals
I'm
that
saying,
are
are you
driving
against?
animals into extinction.
I'm saying, are you against there being laws saying like how big a cage might need to be in factory farms, something like that? Or do you think there shouldn't be a law telling
I'm
somebody
not
what
even willing to talk about that subject until you're willing to tell me that you want to make laws against the pesticides that produce your menu.
I'd have to look at the detail,
Well
which is
then,
why I'd
well
give
then
you
look at the
detail of mine.
details. Then
You'd have
when
to
will
show
you
me
look
it.
at the details? I've been asking you now for what 3 months to look
I
at the
look
details, and you
everything you
still
send
haven't
me.
done it.
Everything you send me.
When will you look? Look, I've sent you data on how deadly organic pesticides are, and you still haven't internalized any of that. When are you going to talk about how deadly organic pesticides are?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's have that be
I've sent you the data, and you still do not have it on hand.
on organic pesticides.
Yes, on
Okay.
organic pesticides. Yes.
Interesting. Okay, I can look it up if you don't want to send it again. I'm not sure where you sent it, but if you could send me that list you just made, that starts off with the whole stupid mice thing, and then ends with the vitamin thing. Send me that, and then send me maybe 1 to 3 specific articles that you want to go over, just me and you. And yeah, send it to me with organic pesticides. That'd be great. I do got to hop off here. I want to thank everybody for watching that watched. And yeah, let's do this again, and we can do one again, just me and you, since you and Michael don't get along. It's fine. And yeah,
look, I can get along with Michael fine, but whenever we're here to talk about crop deaths, and his role is to debunk them as irrelevant, then there's no place for him in this conversation.
Yeah,
when
I think
you
he
and
was
I mean, how are you and I going to tally crop deaths whenever Michael's looking over your shoulder saying, "Hey, but these don't matter. These don't matter. These don't matter because they're not negative rights violations," and all of these intellectually inept, intellectually hollow, intellectually dishonest excuses that vegans use to dismiss the relevance of animal suffering and death when it's about their menu. And so he has no place in this conversation.
I think
if he wants to debate me on the relevance of the animals that die because of what he eats, then there's a place for him.
I think that's
but there's no place for him when you and I are trying to come to some type of general idea of how many animals die because of the vegan menu. There's no place for him.
People talking is usually better than more. So good.
And then it ends up me being outmatched in volume because I'm debating your perspective and his perspective.
No, that's a fair point. 2 people talking is probably going to get a better outcome than more. Fair point. I'd love to see you guys talk on your channel. I'm looking forward to seeing that. And then when me and you talk, we can just do me and you. I do got to hop off here. But yes, it was good talking. And yes, send a couple things over, and let's set up a talk based just on what you send over, and it'll be good talk.
Sounds good.
All right, take care.
You too.